What if we tried an open marriage? Rachel said, stabbing a cherry tomato with her fork. Just for a month. I stared at her, my fork suspended midair. The lasagna I'd made was still hot on the plate between us, the scent of garlic and basil suddenly nauseating. Outside, the cicadas buzzed, relentless in their chorus, but inside our kitchen, our safe, shared space, everything went still. A month. I echoed, like repeating it might change what I heard. She nodded, her eyes bright, as if this was some new couple's retreat she'd booked us into. Just to see what it feels like. No long-term commitments. No expectations. Think of it as an experiment. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We'd been married 9 years. Not always perfect. No marriage is. But I never saw this coming. Sure, we'd had dry spells. Sex had become routine. Life had become schedules. And sometimes I caught her looking distant during movie nights. But never, not once, did I think she'd suggest something that sounded so much like an exit strategy. Rachel leaned in, brushing her dark curls over one shoulder. Look, I read this article. Some couples say it actually brings them closer, helps them rediscover desire for each other. It's like pressing reset. I was still frozen, trying to decipher the expression on her face. She wasn't nervous. In fact, she looked energized. Excited, even. Are you unhappy with me? I asked, keeping my voice steady. No. She reached across the table and touched my hand. This isn't because I'm unhappy. It's because I want more with you. I just think we're stuck. Maybe if we had space to explore, it would make us stronger. Stronger. That word hit like a slap dressed as a compliment. I pulled my hand away, gently, and leaned back in my chair. Are you saying you want to sleep with someone else? She hesitated, and in that pause, everything screamed yes. Not want, necessarily, she said. Just curious. And I'd be fine if you did the same. It would be fair. Fair. I laughed then. A short, bitter exhale I didn't mean to let slip. So this is what we've come to? Exploring other people to fix us? I knew you'd get defensive, she muttered, standing to clear her plate. I'm not defensive, I said, even though I was. I'm trying to understand how the hell we got from couples therapy to hall passes. Rachel sighed, her back to me now. I watched her shoulders rise and fall as she rinsed her dish. She wore that soft gray tank top I loved, the one that clung to her curves. I used to reach for her more. Used to pull her close in the kitchen and kiss her neck while the pasta boiled. Now we barely touched. She turned around and leaned against the sink. Look, I'm not doing this without your consent, but I'm asking you to consider it. Just for 1 month. No secrets. Just honesty. It's not about replacing anything. It's about rediscovering who we are. Individually. And if I say no? Rachel looked at me. Really looked, and I felt my chest tighten. There was something behind her eyes. A quiet kind of resignation. I'd be disappointed, she said slowly. And I think we'd keep drifting. Like we have. So that was the ultimatum. Not spoken, but loud enough to hear. Say no, and I risk her walking away. Maybe not physically. Not yet. But emotionally, she'd already be gone. Say yes, and I risk watching her fall into someone else's arms while pretending I'm okay with it. What if we can't come back from it? I asked, voice quieter than I intended. She stepped toward me and cupped my cheek. We will. I believe in us. This isn't an ending, Mark. It's a reboot. A reboot. I nodded slowly, heart thundering. Okay. Rachel blinked. Okay. You want a 1-month experiment? I said, forcing a smile I didn't feel. Let's see where it takes us. She smiled like I'd given her the best anniversary gift of the decade and leaned in to kiss me. Her lips were soft, familiar, but something had already shifted. A piece of ground beneath us had crumbled, and neither of us wanted to look down just yet. Later that night, while she changed into her satin pajamas and scrolled on her phone, I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling. She was humming softly, some song I didn't recognize, and I realized she wasn't anxious. She was eager, like something had already begun. I turned away and closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind kept replaying her words. It's just for a month. But I knew better. Some lines, once crossed, don't come with maps back. And I had just agreed to let her cross it. I didn't realize how fast things would change. 2 days after I agreed to the experiment, Rachel started acting like a different woman. Not in the way I hoped. Not like we were suddenly closer, reignited with passion, laughing over old memories. No, it was something colder. Sharper. She smiled more, Sure, but rarely at me. She started wearing perfume again. Not the warm vanilla scent she used to dab on her neck for me, but something citrusy, unfamiliar, like she was trying on a new identity. Her phone lit up more often. Messages came through with a frequency I hadn't seen since we were dating, and she guarded that screen like it held state secrets. On the third night, I heard her giggle in the living room. A real, full-bodied laugh that used to be mine. I stepped out of the bedroom, quietly, and saw her on the couch, feet tucked under her, phone in hand, eyes lit up like a teenager texting her crush. She didn't notice me, or she pretended not to. Back in bed, I stared at the ceiling again. Sleep had become a memory. I kept hearing her laugh, and it hurt, not because she was happy, but because it felt like she had already left. By the end of the first week, I was unraveling. The rules were clear: honesty, no secrecy, no pressure. But she wasn't telling me much. Just vague answers when I asked where she'd been. Drinks with someone, she'd say. Just getting to know people. People. Plural. My stomach twisted every time she left the house. I couldn't help imagining her in some low-lit bar, knees brushing someone else's under the table. That look she used to give me. The slow smile, the flirtatious tilt of her head. I wondered if she was offering it to strangers now. And the worst part? She seemed alive again. Me? I was barely holding it together. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my brother, not my coworkers. What would I say? My wife decided to try casual sex to save our marriage, and I'm too afraid to say no. I kept it bottled up, waiting for the pressure to crush me. Then Jess called. Rachel's best friend. Jess of the smoky voice, wine-stained lips, and painfully honest opinions. We'd always gotten along in that slightly antagonistic way, sarcasm layered over mutual respect. But I never expected her to show up on our porch unannounced that Sunday evening, holding a six-pack and wearing that look like she knew something I didn't. Rachel around? She asked, stepping past me before I could answer. She's out, I said. Jess raised an eyebrow. Out, huh? She dropped onto the couch like she owned the place, popped open a beer, and patted the seat beside her. Then you and I need to talk. I hesitated. Did she send you? God, no. Jess said, taking a sip. She'd kill me if she knew I was here. I sat. Jess turned toward me, legs crossed, beard dangling from her fingers. She told me about the experiment. I winced. She made it sound cute. Jess continued. Like a couple's yoga retreat or a subscription box you regret after 2 weeks. She really believes it'll make us stronger, I muttered. Jess studied me for a moment. And you believe that? I didn't answer. She leaned in, her tone softer. Mark, be honest with me. Why did you agree to this? I looked down at the beer in my hand. Because I didn't want to lose her. Jess's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes flickered. So you gave her permission to fall in love with someone else, hoping she'd love you more for it? That hit harder than I expected. She said it's just sex, I said weakly. Jess leaned back, exhaling. That's what they all say? But people don't glow like that after just sex. You've seen her, haven't you? I nodded. She's lit up. Like she just got back from Paris. I didn't mean to say it out loud, but I did. She doesn't look at me like that anymore. Jess turned to face me fully, her voice gentler now. Then maybe it's time you ask why you're the only one playing by the rules. I frowned. What do you mean? Jess shrugged. She's out there. Exploring. Feeling wanted. Desired. And you? You're just here. I'm not trying to keep score. Maybe you should. I stared at her. Jess wasn't being cruel. She was being real. Brutally so. Then she said something that changed everything. Don't let her be the only one exploring. You deserve someone who actually wants you. It hung in the air between us. Unspoken truths draped over the silence. I'm not going to sleep with someone just to make it fair, I said. Jess smiled faintly. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying don't let her convince you that you're not allowed to feel wanted. There was a beat. Something subtle shifted. Jess's gaze lingered a little too long. Her lips parted like she was about to say something else, but thought better of it. Then she stood. Tell Rachel I stopped by. I walked her to the door. As she stepped out, she turned and gave me a look I couldn't read, half curiosity, half warning. She thinks she's in control of this, Jess said quietly. But love doesn't work like a spreadsheet. You don't get to edit someone's heart just because it doesn't fit your plan. I nodded, but I didn't know what to say. Take care of yourself, Mark, she added. Or someone else will. And then she was gone. It started subtly. The next time Jess came over, It was under the pretense of borrowing a book Rachel had recommended. I was home alone again, Rachel out, again, and Jess texted first, saying, "I know she's probably not home, but you might be." She showed up in black jeans and a dark red top that clung to her like temptation had a dress code. It was low-key, casual, but I noticed the difference. The way her eyeliner winged just a bit more. The way she smiled when I opened the door, slow, deliberate. "Still reading that Murakami thing?" she asked, stepping inside without waiting for an answer. "I finished it a month ago," I said. "Didn't know you were a fan." "I'm not," she said with a smirk. "I'm a fan of watching Rachel pretend she understands magical realism." I laughed, first time in days. She handed me a bottle of wine as she wandered toward the kitchen. "For your nerves." I didn't say I had any. You didn't have to. We didn't talk about Rachel until the second glass. Jess had a way of keeping conversation breezy, talking about terrible Tinder bios she'd screenshotted for laughs, asking about my job like she hadn't heard about it 100 times before. And then, just as I was getting comfortable, she leaned across the counter, elbows down, chin on her hands, and said, "Have you thought about seeing someone?" I nearly choked on my wine. "What?" Jess grinned, all teeth and challenge. "Not permanently. Just exploring. That's the term, right?" I shook my head. "I told you. I'm not trying to even the score." Her eyes flicked down, then back up. "Still, seems lonely on the moral high ground." There was a silence between us. Not awkward, heavy, charged. I watched her fingers play idly with the stem of her glass. Her nails were painted dark, chipped at the edges. Jess always had that edge, a kind of rough grace. Like she'd walk into a fight and flirt in the middle of it. "You're enjoying this too much," I said. "Enjoying what?" "Watching me squirm." She tilted her head, playful. "A little, but only because I think you need it." "Need what?" "To stop pretending you're okay with this." The air thickened. I could feel her eyes on me, not just looking, but seeing. She knew. She knew how twisted up I was inside, how badly I wanted to scream every time Rachel left the house in that new perfume, wearing that new smile. "You don't get it," I muttered. "If I make a move, if I so much as flirt back, she'll twist it into a betrayal." "But she's already doing it," Jess said. "She's not waiting around for your feelings to catch up. That's not what we agreed to." Jess leaned in closer. Her voice dropped, lower, more intimate. "Mark, she didn't ask you for an open marriage because she was curious. She asked because she already made up her mind." I flinched. "Tell me," she continued. "Do you know his name yet?" "No." "Do you think she just happened to find someone the same week you said yes?" That stopped me cold. Because no, I didn't believe that. Deep down, I suspected she'd already met him. Or planned to. Or maybe they'd been circling each other for months, waiting for her conscience to find a loophole. Jess stood and stretched, slow and feline, like she had all the time in the world. "You know what pisses me off," she said. "Watching you play the patient husband while she pretends you're both in this equally. You're not. She's not waiting to see how you're doing. She's chasing the high. And you're the one at home, washing the wine glasses." "You're making this worse," I said, my voice rougher than I wanted it to be. "Maybe," Jess said, stepping closer. "But maybe you need worse. Maybe you need to stop pretending this doesn't burn." Her hand brushed mine. It was a light touch, casual enough to pass as nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Not with the way she looked at me right after. Not with the silence that followed. "Jess," she interrupted. "Relax. I'm not trying to seduce you." I raised an eyebrow. She smirked. "Yet." It was a joke. I told myself it was a joke. But my body didn't believe it. I felt it. That flutter in my chest, that ache in my gut. The way my pulse sped up when she leaned in just slightly and whispered, "You deserve someone who actually wants you." I couldn't breathe. Jess lingered a beat too long, then turned and walked to the door. "You know where to find me," she said over her shoulder. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time since this experiment began, I felt something sharp cut through the numbness. Desire. Not for revenge, not for validation, but for something real, something I hadn't felt in months. I sat there for a long time after she left, glass half empty in front of me, the echo of her words lingering in the room like perfume. "You deserve someone who actually wants you." The first time she didn't come home until morning, she didn't even try to lie about it. I woke to the soft buzz of her key in the lock around 6:15 a.m. The sun was just rising, casting a pale blue over the living room walls. I'd fallen asleep on the couch, Not by design, but because I couldn't stand being in our bed alone again. Or worse, in it while wondering who she might be sharing someone else's with. She came in barefoot, heels dangling from 2 fingers, her hair a tousled halo of guiltless curls. No walk of shame, no sheepish expression, just that same glow I hadn't seen on her face in years, but now it wasn't for me. "Hey," she said casually, as if she'd just returned from the gym. I sat up slowly. "You didn't text." I didn't want to wake you. I studied her. The smudged mascara, the faint red marks along her neck, the wrinkle in her dress near the hem, a telltale sign that it had come off and gone back on at least once in the last 12 hours. Rachel caught my gaze and gave a faint smile. "It was a late night. I just stayed." "Did you sleep?" I asked, voice dry. She blinked. "You mean, like, sleep?" I didn't answer. She bit her lip, but there was no trace of shame, only calculation. "Mark, you knew this was going to happen. You said yes." "I didn't say yes to you vanishing." "You said yes to a month of freedom," she countered, and moved past me toward the kitchen, already reaching for the coffee grinder. Like we were just 2 roommates in different time zones. The room filled with the low grind of beans as I stared at her back. I noticed the sway in her hips, the looseness in her shoulders, the kind of relaxed confidence that doesn't come from yoga or meditation. It comes from being touched, wanted, changed. I swallowed hard. "So, is this someone new? Or the same guy?" Rachel hesitated, just for a second. "It's someone I've talked to before." Talked. Right. So she'd already had this lined up. The words hit harder than I expected. Not because I was surprised, but because it confirmed what Jess had hinted at. Rachel turned, coffee mug in hand, sipping calmly. "I know this is hard, but I don't want to fight. We promised no judgment." "Are you judging me?" "I'm just saying, you're allowed to do the same, Mark." That strange twist again. The implication that if I wasn't exploring, it was somehow my fault. I felt so miserable. That if I chose monogamy, I was choosing pain. As if the only way to stay connected to her was to cheat with her. "Do you even miss me?" I asked. Rachel blinked, caught off guard. "Of course I do. You don't act like it." She crossed her arms. "That's not fair. Neither is waking up wondering if your wife is having better sex with someone else." She stiffened. "It's not about better. No? Because you look like someone who's found exactly what she was missing." Silence fell between us. Not angry, not loud, just brittle. Fragile. Rachel sighed, softening slightly. "Look, this is temporary. We said we'd try. Don't make this harder than it has to be." I almost laughed. "You think this isn't hard already?" She walked to me, placing a hand on my chest. It didn't feel like love. It felt like pity. "I still love you," she said. But the words rang hollow. Her eyes were somewhere else. Her body here, but her mind in some low-lit room with another man's mouth on her neck. And I realized, at that moment, she wasn't trying to strengthen anything. She was trying to see what else was out there, and if she liked it enough to let go. Later that afternoon, Jess texted, "You okay?" I didn't respond immediately. Then another text. "She's gone again, isn't she?" I replied simply, "Yeah." 10 minutes later, my doorbell rang. Jess stood there holding a bag of takeout and a bottle of whiskey. "No lectures," she said. "Just carbs and alcohol." I stepped aside, letting her in. She dropped onto the couch like she'd done it 100 times and passed me a container. Thai noodles. Extra spicy. My comfort food. For a while, we ate in silence. Then Jess set her chopsticks down and looked at me, her expression softer than usual. "She's doing this on purpose," she said. "She's not testing the marriage. She's testing you." "What do you mean?" "She wants to see what you'll tolerate. What she can get away with." "She says she still loves me." Jess scoffed. "You don't tell someone you love them and then disappear overnight without a single message. That's not love. That's convenience." I stared at the floor. "She's not afraid of losing you," Jess continued, "because she thinks you'll always be here. Waiting. Passive." My jaw clenched. "And what? You think I should sleep around to prove something?" Jess leaned in. "I think you need to stop holding back out of guilt. You didn't ask for this. You didn't break anything." She did. There was a pause. And then she reached out. Not boldly, not seductively, but with genuine affection. Her hand rested lightly on mine. Don't let her be the only one allowed to feel desired. I looked up, met her eyes. She wasn't teasing this time. She meant it. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I believed someone actually saw me. Not as a husband playing martyr, or a man quietly unraveling, but as a person worth being wanted. And I wanted that. More than I wanted her permission. The wine hit harder than usual. Maybe it was the empty stomach. Maybe it was the ache in my chest. Or maybe it was Jess, barefoot on my couch, legs curled beneath her, wearing a loose navy sweater that kept slipping off her shoulder like it had a mind of its own. We didn't mean for it to happen. Not really. At least, that's what I told myself. After the takeout, we drifted into conversation like we used to, before all of this, when she was just Rachel's firecracker best friend with a laugh like whiskey and zero filter. She always made me laugh, even when she irritated me. Especially then. Tonight, though, her jokes were quieter, her laughter softer, and her eyes, they kept lingering. "You remember when we first met?" she asked, swirling the last of her wine in the glass. I nodded. "You were wearing leather boots and told me I looked like a man who still ironed his own shirts." Jess grinned. "You did. You looked terrified of me." I admitted. "You were this unfiltered chaos storm. And you were this uptight, freshly married golden retriever. You kept looking at Rachel like she hung the moon." I paused. "I did." Jess's smile faded a bit. "Yeah, I remember." She reached for the bottle and refilled both our glasses. The air between us thickened, not with tension exactly, but something adjacent. Something breathing. "How long do you think she's been gone?" Jess asked quietly. I didn't need to ask what she meant. Longer than she admitted. Jess leaned back against the armrest, one leg stretched across the cushions. Her bare foot brushed my thigh. She didn't move it. Neither did I. There was a silence. Heavy. Real. "I hate seeing you like this," she said. "Like you're just withering. You used to laugh with your whole face. I used to have someone who loved me with their whole heart." Jess sat up, her eyes locking onto mine. "Mark, look at me." I did. "You are still wanted," she said. "Still worth someone's full attention." I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until I let it out. I rubbed my face. "I don't want to be this guy. The one who breaks a vow because I'm lonely." She shook her head. "She broke it first. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet." I closed my eyes. Then I felt it, her hand, on my cheek, fingertips warm, gentle, anchoring. When I opened them again, she was close, inches away. We didn't move for a long time. Her breath was soft against my skin. The scent of her, jasmine, wine, something earthy, filled the space between us. "Jess," I whispered, not sure what I was asking for. Her lips parted, and then she kissed me. It was slow at first, testing, lingering. Her lips brushed mine like a question she was half afraid to ask. I kissed her back, just once, then again, and then I pulled away. She sat back, breathing shallow. "Mark, I can't," I said, voice thick. "Not like this. Not yet." Jess nodded, her face unreadable. She stood slowly, smoothing her sweater. "I shouldn't have." "No," I interrupted. "I wanted to." She looked at me for a long moment. Then something shifted in her gaze. Not anger, not embarrassment. Just understanding. "Come find me when you're done bleeding," she said softly. "Because I'm not going to kiss you like that again. Not unless it means something." And then she left. The door clicked behind her, but the echo of her kiss stayed long after. I sat there, heart hammering. The guilt came quickly, sharp and raw, but not for the reason I expected. I didn't feel guilty because I'd betrayed Rachel. I felt guilty because I didn't regret it. I should have. I should have felt shame, panic, horror. But what I felt instead was warmth. The ache of being seen. The sting of realizing how long it had been since someone touched me like they wanted me, not like they were just going through motions. Rachel came home late again that night. I was in bed pretending to sleep when she slipped in beside me. I didn't say a word. She didn't either. I could smell unfamiliar cologne on her skin, could feel her body radiating a satisfaction she hadn't shared with me in months. She didn't touch me, didn't whisper goodnight, just curled away into the dark and left me there. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, lips still buzzing with the memory of Jess. And somewhere between guilt and desire, I realized something I couldn't take back. It hadn't felt like a mistake. It had felt like the first time I'd been alive in weeks. The night it finally happened wasn't a surprise. It was a buildup, a slow burn, the kind of inevitability you feel in your chest before it touches your skin. Looking back, I think I'd already crossed the line the moment I let Jess kiss me. Maybe even before that. Maybe the moment I let myself want her. But that night, That was the moment I let go of whatever thin illusion I'd been clinging to. It started with a text. Rachel won't make dinner tonight. Said she's meeting someone. The quotation marks weren't mine. They were Jess's. Sharp, deliberate, bitter. I stared at the message for longer than I should have. Rachel had promised we'd still have our Friday dinners, that they'd be untouched. A weekly ritual, a tether to keep us grounded. But now, even that was being cut. Want company? She followed up. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I should have said no, but I didn't. Yeah, come over. It rained that evening. Jess showed up in black jeans, boots, and a white t-shirt just damp enough from the walk to cling in all the right places. She had her hair tied up. No makeup. No effort to impress. And yet she looked better than she ever had. Still want that company? She asked, stepping inside. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. There wasn't awkwardness anymore. No pretending. The silence between us wasn't filled with tension. It was humming with permission. I brought wine, she said, holding up a bottle of red. I took it and set it on the kitchen counter, but neither of us reached for glasses. She leaned against the island. So, dinner plans canceled? I nodded. She didn't even call. Jess exhaled, then pushed off the counter, walked over to me. Her voice dropped. You don't need to explain anymore, Mark. You've done enough explaining. Enough waiting. Enough hurting. Her fingers brushed my wrist, a feather-light touch, barely there, but it lit something in me. I'm tired, I said, quieter than I meant. Of what? Being second. Jess stepped closer. You're not. Our eyes met. And then she kissed me again, slower this time. Deeper. No hesitation. No guilt. I kissed her back. This time I didn't stop. Clothes came off in pieces, some careful, some frantic. My shirt hit the hallway floor. Her bra slid from her shoulders like silk surrendering. Her skin was warm. Alive. Her hands in my hair, my name on her breath. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't lust. It was need. Raw and urgent. The kind of intimacy I hadn't felt in years. Not just touch. Not just sex. But connection. The way she looked at me like I wasn't broken. Like I was still worth reaching for. The way she whispered my name when her nails dug into my back. Mark, she breathed, again and again. Like she didn't want me to forget who I was. We didn't rush. There was time in the spaces between, long, aching seconds where our foreheads pressed together, where I cupped her face and just looked at her. Her eyes were soft, wanting, present. She wanted me. Not what I used to be. Not what Rachel wanted me to become. Just me. And God, that felt good. Afterward, we lay tangled in silence. Her head rested against my chest, fingers tracing idle shapes on my ribs. I didn't speak. I couldn't, because I didn't feel regret. I felt clarity, a sharp, sudden knowing that I had just crossed the invisible line between who I had been, the husband waiting at home, the man gripping loyalty like a life raft, and who I was now, someone who had finally claimed something for himself. Jess broke the silence. You okay? I nodded slowly. She lifted her head to look at me. You're not him anymore. Who? The man who thought he had to wait to be chosen. Her words landed like a spark on dry ground. I reached up and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. And what about you? You weren't just proving a point, were you? Jess hesitated. Her eyes searched mine. No, she said softly. I wish I could say this was about making a statement. But it's not. I didn't mean to feel something. But I did. I swallowed hard. You don't need to say anything, she added quickly. I'm not asking for promises. I wanted you to know. I'm glad it was you, I said. I don't know what that means yet. But I mean it. She kissed me again. Slow. Gentle. Then she sat up and started getting dressed. I should go. You don't have to. Jess smiled faintly. I do. Because if I stay, it becomes something we both have to name. And right now, I think we're both still figuring out what that is. I walked her to the door, the silence between us not awkward, just full. Full of things unsaid. Of possibilities. Of whatever came next. She paused in the doorway. When she finds out, Jess said, she'll pretend to be shocked. Betrayed, even. But deep down, she'll know she pushed you here. And then she was gone. Rachel didn't come home until after midnight. I heard the garage door open, her heels clicking on the hardwood. I stayed in bed. When she came in, she didn't speak. Neither did I. She climbed into bed beside me, her perfume unfamiliar again. But this time, I wasn't holding my breath. I was done bleeding. And for the first time since she proposed the experiment, I wasn't afraid of where it might lead, because I had already chosen myself. The funny thing about change is how quietly it arrives. There was no speech, no grand awakening. Just one morning, I looked in the mirror and didn't see the man who'd been waiting around, hoping to be enough. I saw someone else, someone standing straighter, someone who had nothing left to lose, and strangely, that made him free. Rachel noticed first in small ways. It was how I didn't ask where she was going on Thursday night, how I didn't flinch when she came home later than expected. I didn't wait by the door. I didn't sit on the couch, trying to pretend the silence wasn't eating me alive. Because I wasn't home. I was with Jess. Not always physically, but mentally, emotionally. I was there more than I had been in months. Jess brought over records. Vinyl. Actual sleeves with creases and handwritten track lists. She said Spotify was too sterile for whiskey and late-night conversations. We started playing chess, too. Mostly at her place. Her way of teaching me patience. Or maybe dominance. She liked to win, and I liked watching her win. There was no talk of labels, no pressure, just two people rediscovering the simple joy of being wanted, desired, seen. With her, I laughed again. I made jokes I didn't even realize I remembered. I cooked, not because I had to, but because I wanted to see the way her eyes lit up when I nailed her Thai basil chicken recipe. I slept better. I felt lighter. And Rachel? She started watching me. At first it was subtle. A glance over her shoulder when I hummed in the kitchen. A pause in the hallway when she caught me getting dressed in something other than the usual faded jeans and hoodie. I wore a button-down one evening just because Jess liked the way I looked in blue. Rachel noticed. "You look nice," she said, hesitating in the doorway. "Thanks," I replied, brushing past her. Her head turned slightly, tracking me. "Got plans?" I smiled without looking back. "Maybe." Saturday morning, I was in the garage, reorganizing my workbench, something I'd put off for almost a year. I had music playing, sleeves rolled, coffee in hand. I didn't hear her come in. "Since when do you care about the garage?" Rachel asked behind me. I turned. "Since I stopped caring about everything else." She blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means I've got time now. You're busy most nights, remember?" Her jaw tightened. "So this is how it's going to be?" "How it's going to be. This passive-aggressive phase where you punish me for doing exactly what we agreed on." I set the screwdriver down. "No one's being punished, Rachel. You're free to do what you want." "And you?" "I'm just doing the same." The silence stretched. Her eyes scanned my face, as if searching for something that used to be there. And maybe it was once, but not anymore. "You've changed," she said quietly. I nodded. "Yeah, I have." She didn't speak, just turned and left. And I realized something then. It wasn't that she was confused. It was that she hadn't expected this to work. She thought the experiment would break me down, not rebuild me. She thought she could keep me on standby while she explored. But now, she could feel it. That control slipping. Sunday night, she made dinner. That hadn't happened in weeks. She called me into the kitchen like it was normal, like she hadn't spent the last month floating through our house like a stranger. "Pasta," she said. "Your favorite." I sat, watched her move around the stove. It smelled good, I'll give her that. But the whole thing felt rehearsed, like she'd watched the memory of us from a distance and was trying to mimic it. We ate in silence for a few bites before she said, "Do you still want this?" "This?" I echoed. "Our marriage." I set my fork down. "I don't know what this marriage is anymore." Her eyes dropped. "It's still us." "No," I said. "It was us. Now it's you and me in separate orbits, pretending we're just on a detour." "I'm trying," she said. "Are you?" I asked. "Or are you trying to erase the guilt by keeping me in reach?" That landed. Rachel leaned back in her chair, exhaling. "I didn't expect you to change." "You mean heal?" "I mean move on." I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't wounded. I just saw her. A woman who didn't know how far she'd pushed until there was no hand left reaching back. "Who is he?" I asked. Her lips parted, then closed. "You don't have to lie," I said. "I'm not asking because I want to punish you. I'm asking because I deserve to know who replaced me before you had the courage to admit you were done." She stared at her plate. "It doesn't matter." "It does to me." Rachel looked up. Her eyes were glossy, but the tears didn't fall. "It was supposed to be temporary." "But you planned it," I said. "Didn't you?" Silence. "I thought I'd feel alive again," she whispered. "And?" She blinked, swallowing hard. "I just feel empty." I stood. "Mark, I've got somewhere to be, I said. Jess answered her door in leggings and an oversized hoodie. No makeup, hair in a bun, bare feet. She looked at me like she already knew. You okay? She asked. I don't want to be home tonight, I said. Then don't be. She stepped aside, and for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't look back. It was bound to happen eventually. The secret wasn't meant to last. Maybe I had hoped we'd get ahead of it, that Rachel would reach the natural end of her experiment and come back ready to talk, to reckon with the wreckage she'd caused. But what happened instead? She caught Jess leaving, and everything unraveled. It was a Tuesday morning. Overcast, early spring. Jess had stayed the night. Not the first time, but the first time she didn't leave before sunrise. We were careful, mostly. Discreet. But that morning, we were slow-moving, too comfortable. Too exposed. I was still in bed when I heard the front door open downstairs. I thought it was Jess heading out. Instead, I heard Rachel's voice. Oh my God, my chest clenched. I threw on a shirt and rushed downstairs to find them both standing in the living room. Jess near the door, calm but coiled. Rachel frozen mid-step, keys dangling from her fingers, her mouth slightly open like she'd forgotten how to breathe. She turned slowly toward me. You slept with her? She said. Voice low. Dangerous. I glanced at Jess. She didn't move. Didn't shrink. Just watched. Rachel stepped forward. Mark, are you serious? You don't get to be outraged, I said, trying to stay steady. Her voice cracked. My best friend, and my wife asked for an open marriage. That was your idea. Your rules. Her jaw clenched. So you decided to screw my best friend out of spite. No, I said. I didn't screw her. I chose her. Jess blinked, her expression softening. Rachel's face twisted. So this was what? Revenge? Tit for tat? I stepped forward. You said we could see other people. You didn't say I couldn't feel something. Rachel scoffed. Bullshit. You don't just accidentally fall into bed with someone. No, I said. I didn't. I walked into it. After weeks of sleeping next to a stranger who smelled like someone else and smiled like she was already gone. Her eyes flashed. You think I'm the villain? I think you stopped loving me months ago and hoped an experiment would let you walk away without guilt. Silence. Jess quietly picked up her coat. I should go, she said softly. But Rachel stepped in front of her. No, you don't get to leave yet. Jess raised a brow. Excuse me. You sat across from me 2 weeks ago and told me you thought Mark looked tired. You played innocent. Jess met her gaze. I was being honest. He was tired of you. Rachel's mouth dropped. You bitch. Jess didn't flinch. You opened the door and expected no one to walk through it, but you. You made your bed, Ratch. He just stopped waiting for you to come back to it. I stepped between them. Enough. Rachel turned on me. You think this means something? I looked her dead in the eyes. Yes, it does. She stepped back, like I'd struck her. This was never supposed to be permanent, she said, voice barely audible. You said it would make us stronger, I reminded her. But what it really did was show us who we are when we're free to choose. And you chose her? I chose me. And she chose me back. Rachel shook her head, stunned. You slept with Jess. You had no problem sleeping with other men. They weren't in my wedding photos. And yet none of them ever came into our house or saw me fall apart. That shut her up. Jess slipped out quietly while Rachel and I stood there in the quiet storm of what we'd become. The front door clicked, but her presence lingered like static. Rachel sank onto the couch. I thought we were figuring things out, she whispered. No, I said. You thought I'd sit here and wait while you figured out if I was still enough. She stared at her hands. I never wanted to lose you, she said. But you didn't want to fight for me, either. Silence. The kind that doesn't offer room for repair. After a long pause, she stood. So what now? I don't know, I said. But I'm not going to apologize for choosing someone who made me feel like I mattered. Rachel turned to the door. I need time. You've had a month. She hesitated. This isn't over. Maybe it should be. She left without another word. And I stood in the center of our home, the one we built, the one she fractured, and realized I didn't feel empty anymore. I felt clarity, not peace. Not yet. But the fog had lifted. That evening, Jess texted. Did you regret it? I didn't need to think. No, not even for a second. A few minutes later, come over. Let's not pretend anymore. I thought I already knew everything. I thought the worst of it. Rachel asking for an open marriage, the endless nights she disappeared, The way she came home smelling like someone else's skin was already behind me. But the real betrayal hadn't even hit me yet. It came days after the confrontation. Rachel and I hadn't spoken much since. She sent a few texts, half-hearted, mostly logistical, about bills, the dog, groceries. Not a single one mentioned Jess. Not a single one said, "I miss you." She was quieter now, but it didn't feel like remorse. It felt like calculation. Like she was waiting for the dust to settle to see which pieces were still worth picking up. I wasn't one of them. Then Jess called. Her voice was tight, controlled. I could tell something was off. "Can you come over?" she asked. I was already in the car. When she opened the door, she didn't smile. She handed me a beer and sat on the edge of the couch, arms crossed, eyes narrowed like she was trying to figure out the best way to throw a grenade without flinching. "She came to see me," Jess said. "Rachel?" Jess nodded. "This morning. Showed up unannounced. Wanted to talk." My stomach turned. "About what?" Jess looked up, her voice razor sharp. "About how this wasn't fair. How I had no right. How you were confused, and she was going to win you back once this all passed." I laughed bitterly. "She still thinks this is a game." "It gets worse," Jess said. She admitted it. The whole thing. My blood went cold. Admitted what? That she already had someone lined up before she ever talked to you about the open marriage. That it wasn't about growth or finding yourselves or strengthening your bond. She already started sleeping with him? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Jess hesitated. She didn't say it outright, she said. But it was obvious. She told me she had feelings for someone before the conversation ever happened. She just needed an excuse that wouldn't make her the bad guy. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. She planned it. Jess nodded. She used your trust as a tool to clear her conscience. She didn't ask for permission, Mark. She asked for cover. The words hit harder than I expected. Not because I was surprised, but because hearing it aloud gave shape to something I'd only been able to feel in the dark. That quiet betrayal. That itch in my gut the night she first proposed it. It all made sense now. She hadn't wanted freedom. She wanted absolution. She said she felt trapped, Jess added. That she loved you, but missed being wanted. She talked about how hard it was to be married to someone who made her feel safe, but not thrilling. That part hurt more than I thought it would. Safe. I wasn't her passion anymore, just her harbor, her steady place. But the thing is, you can't build forever on excitement. Lust burns fast. Love is the thing you come home to. She wanted both. And when she couldn't have it, she decided to rewrite the rules. She thought I'd give you up, Jess said, her voice flat now. She expected me to walk away out of loyalty. I looked at her. And why didn't you? She smiled faintly. Because I stopped being her friend the moment I saw what she did to you. And because somewhere in the middle of all this, I fell for you. The room got quiet. Jess looked down at her hands. I didn't mean to. It wasn't a plan. But you were just there. Real. Bleeding. And honest. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was orbiting someone else's story. I felt like I was in it. I sat beside her, taking her hand in mine. You're not a detour, Jess. She blinked. Then what am I? You're the first person who looked at me and saw me. Not as a fixer-upper. Not as someone to tolerate. But as someone worth choosing. She leaned into me, her head against my shoulder. We sat like that for a long time. Not speaking. Not needing to. Just two people, no longer pretending, no longer holding back. Later that evening, I got a text from Rachel. We need to talk. Please. Just one last time. I stared at it. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally knew what not to say. I typed. There's nothing left to fix. You didn't want a partner. You wanted permission. And now you've got consequences. I hit send. No reply came. That night, Jess curled into me as the rain started falling. Her breathing slow, steady. Her fingers laced with mine. And I thought about all the ways Rachel had rewritten our marriage to fit her needs. How she'd traded honesty for convenience. How she'd cloaked betrayal in the language of growth. And how, in doing so, she'd lost the one thing she never expected to lose. Me. Rachel showed up at my door 3 days later. No warning. No text. No apology in advance. Just the quiet knock of someone who finally realized the door might not open anymore. I answered. She looked small. Not in the physical sense. Rachel had always carried herself with effortless poise, the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room. But that day, she was in faded jeans, a sweatshirt that hung off one shoulder, and no makeup. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were puffy, her mouth tight. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked into the living room like she remembered it, like she was hoping to find some version of our life still tucked between the couch cushions. She sat on the edge of the armrest and stared at her hands. I didn't sit. "I want to stop the experiment," she said finally. I waited. She looked up. "I want to go back. To us." I let the silence stretch until it made her uncomfortable. "We can't," I said. Rachel's eyes flicked to mine. "Why not? You don't go back after a demolition," I replied. "You build something new. But this? What we had. You didn't just chip the paint, Rachel. You took a sledgehammer to the foundation." "I thought I needed something," she said. "I thought I was suffocating, like I was disappearing. And instead of talking to me, you drafted an escape plan." Tears welled in her eyes. "I thought it would help. I thought it would make me realize what mattered, that it would bring us closer in the end. By sleeping with someone else." I asked, jaw clenched. "I know how that sounds. It sounds like what it is." She stood, suddenly desperate. "You don't understand how lonely I felt, Mark." "No," I snapped. "You don't understand. I've spent the last year wondering what I did wrong. Wondering why you pulled away. Why I wasn't enough. You say you were lonely, but I was right there." Rachel flinched. I took a breath. Softer this time. "I didn't stop showing up, Rachel. You did. And when you asked for the open marriage, I said yes. Not because I wanted to, but because I was terrified saying no would mean losing you." "I didn't want to lose you," she whispered. "But you did lose me. The second you decided your excitement mattered more than our vows." She stepped closer, voice trembling. "Then let's start again. No more games. No more open anything. Just us. Please." I looked at her, and for a split second, I saw the girl I married. The one who used to dance barefoot in the kitchen, who laughed with her whole face, who once clutched my hand like it was a lifeline. But that girl was gone. She had been gone long before this experiment began. And now? I didn't miss her. "I don't love you the same anymore," I said quietly. Rachel stared at me like the words had physically struck her. "You don't mean that." "I do. Because of her." "No," I said. "Because of you." That night, Jess came over. I didn't tell her about Rachel immediately. She noticed something in my eyes. The way I looked less burdened, less split down the middle. "You talked to her," Jess said, curling up beside me on the couch. I nodded. "She asked to stop the experiment," I told her. "And I told her it was already over." Jess was quiet for a moment. "Do you regret how this happened?" I thought about that. The betrayal. The pain. The nights I laid awake wondering if I was the villain for feeling so broken. "No," I said. "Because I found someone in the wreckage who didn't just help me stand. She reminded me how to want more." Jess smiled faintly. "I didn't mean to fall for you. I didn't mean to fall back." She leaned in and kissed me, slow and certain. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. "You sure you're ready for this?" she asked. "I'm sure I'm done apologizing for being happy." The next morning, Rachel sent a final message. "If you walk away now, there's no going back." I read it, deleted it. Then I grabbed my jacket and headed out. Jess was waiting for me in her driveway. And when I reached for her hand, she didn't hesitate. She took it, tightly, like someone who chose me, not because I was safe, not because I was convenient, but because I was enough. The last time I saw Rachel, she looked like a woman trying to rewrite the ending of a book that had already been printed. She stood on our front porch as I packed the last of my boxes into the trunk of my car. It wasn't everything. I didn't want it to be. Just the essentials. The things that were still mine. A few clothes, some books, my grandfather's watch. I left the coffee mugs, the couch, the anniversary photo still hanging by the stairs. That life could stay there. "I didn't think you'd really leave," she said softly. The wind pulled her hair across her face, and she didn't bother brushing it away. There was a finality in her voice now, not the pleading edge she used in our last conversation. Just a quiet, sinking realization. "I gave you everything I had left," I replied. She looked away. "And still, I lost." "No," I said. "You gambled." She met my eyes. "You created the game," I continued. "Made the rules. Thought you'd win no matter what. Either I'd be too scared to leave, or too desperate to let go. You never thought I'd choose something different." "Someone different," she corrected bitterly. I shrugged. She didn't seduce me to prove a point. She didn't try to win me. She just stayed. When you didn't. Rachel's eyes burned. "I gave you permission to explore, not to replace me." "That's the thing," I said. You gave yourself permission a long time ago. You just made it my responsibility to forgive you for it. She stepped closer. So this is it. I nodded. You and Jess. I didn't answer right away. Because it wasn't about Jess. Not really. She hadn't been the reason I stopped loving Rachel. She'd just been the mirror that showed me what love was supposed to look like. She didn't ask me to choose, I said. But you did. And you're choosing her? I looked past her, at the house, at the porch where we used to sit with coffee and dreams of a future that no longer fit. I'm choosing me, I said. And yes, I'm choosing her too. But not as revenge. Not to hurt you. Because she chose me back. Honestly. Without conditions. Rachel's shoulders slumped. It was the first time she didn't try to fight. Didn't try to reframe the conversation into a debate. You really loved me, she whispered. I still do, I said. But love isn't always enough. Not when it stops being safe to hold. She nodded slowly. There were no tears. Just the sound of finality settling between us. I got into the car, started the engine. She didn't move. She just watched me go. And for the first time since the day she asked for the open marriage, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. Jess was waiting outside her apartment when I arrived. She wore a simple black dress and sneakers. No makeup, hair in a messy bun. She looked like home. I stepped out of the car, and her eyes widened slightly. You did it, she said. I nodded. You okay? I paused. I think yeah. I really am. Jess stepped forward, wrapping her arms around my neck. I buried my face in her shoulder. She didn't say anything poetic or dramatic. She just held me. And sometimes, that's enough. Later that night, we sat on her balcony, legs tangled, wine in hand. The city buzzed quietly beneath us. It felt like a fresh start without fireworks. No explosions. Just a steady unfolding. Jess broke the silence. So what now? I glanced at her. Now we stop pretending we're just filling space. She smiled. I don't want to be your rebound. You're not, I said. You're my reset. Jess reached for my hand. Good. Because I didn't fall for the broken version of you. I fell for the one who finally realized he deserved more. I looked at her, heart full in a way I didn't know was possible. I didn't mean to love you, I said quietly. She grinned. But you did. I nodded. Yeah, I really did. Some experiments don't strengthen love. They reveal who never had it in the first place. Rachel thought she was opening a door to freedom. But all she did was expose the cracks she tried to wallpaper over with sex and half-truths. I don't hate her. I just finally see her. And more importantly, I finally see me. Not the man who stayed out of fear, but the man who walked away, not to escape, but to begin again.